Hey, welcome to Discovering More, an opportunity to dive a little bit into parts of the messages that we're preaching here at Peace. And this past weekend we talked about waiting in prayer, and we talked about King Saul in the Old Testament, and how he failed to wait. In his worry, he turned to maybe the feelings that he was feeling from other people, from his own heart. And Mark, you made a comment. You felt sorry for Saul.
I did. As I'm listening to the sermon, I'm thinking, God, that's a little severe, isn't it? You know, to have Saul lose the kingdom because he was impatient, and also that wasn't just impatience; it was anxious, right?
Yeah.
He was really anxious about it. But that's sort of the irony is that he didn't pray.
Yeah.
You know, is that he could have. My takeaway was when life forces us to wait. That's really when we need to be praying, just as sort of a sustaining relationship with God to get us through the waiting.
Yeah, and that anxiety is such a powerful force within us because I think it calls out of us what is most natural. Like what is your default setting? And oftentimes our default setting is not based off holiness, which is why it's important to develop the disciplines and the habits of the right way of living in moments when it's not stressful. Because then when we hit the stressful moments, that's when our character shows. That's when our default settings show. And that goes to why it's so important to help our children especially develop helpful default settings, because we get to adulthood and it's hard to change as an adult. It's hard to be like, oh yeah, last time I messed up in this situation, let's not do it again. And then you get to the same situation and you find yourself doing the same thing.
Yeah, it becomes really deeply ingrained. It's a habitual sort of response to stuff.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I'm just thinking about how in our culture too, and I think it's for everybody, but it feels to me even more so for men, is that we're just like ingrained in us. You got to do it, get it done, right?
Yeah. Solve the problem.
Yeah, solve the problem, and it's up to you. Versus having that natural default of, God, how do you want me to behave in this situation?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes I think the problem of the waiting is God doesn't call us to solve everything. He calls us to be faithful to Him. And that requires getting connected with Him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I guess as you're talking, made me think of another episode with the king, King Jehoshaphat. I think it's in Chronicles, but he's facing imminent war, and what he does, he puts on the sackcloth, he gathers everyone together for a prayer meeting. And so it's just, where are we operating normally? Are we operating out of a place of prayer? And like you said, I think especially for men, we don't necessarily have an emotional language to be able to verbalize. Oftentimes, I notice myself, like, how are you feeling? Angry or bad becomes the two words we have. I remember one time my dad, he had done something, I forget even what he did, but he said, I feel badly. And it's like, wow, Dad, that's some emotive language. I feel badly. So I think part of it for us is working on developing the language. And you notice even David in the Psalms, how in touch with his emotions he is. And it's not just for, women who tend to be more, and it's not all women that are more in touch with their emotions, but generally I would say they have a better grasp on those things. But for all of us, even to be able to verbalize those emotions without even needing to act on them.
And to bring those emotions to God.
Yeah.
I think that's something we all can learn, is that sometimes prayer is really just about letting it out to God. My frustration or my anger or whatever it might be, because I don't know what to do next or how to behave next, but to let God know those feelings and then listen to how He's going to respond to my heart.
Yeah, and I think emotions, we need to remember that emotions are neutral. Emotions aren't sinful or holy. Emotions are part of our human experience. And like in Psalm 4, it's be angry but don't sin. Okay, so you can be angry and yet not sin. You can have desire and not sin. You can have all the range of emotions that can come upon a person, and in the midst of that, not use them to justify a wrong behavior.
Mm.
It just, what you were talking about earlier reminded me of a therapist who, when she had men, she would hand them a sheet that had emotion words on it, so that they might have language to be able to communicate. And I'm thinking about maybe that's a big reason why maybe especially men need to read the Psalms
Yeah.
and make that a part of our prayers, so that we're taking in. There's a lot of emotional language of all sorts in the Psalms, and to use that to feed into our prayers, so that we're not just, I guess, giving God facts. Because he knows them anyway.
Yeah, I think feeling defeated is especially a dangerous emotion. Feeling like you got no way out. You've lost, and so how to overcome that? Ultimately, like, we all hang on the victory of Jesus. So, as people, especially people of God, we can feel defeated, but it doesn't mean we are defeated. We can even lose in the moment, and I wonder if in that situation, like Samuel comes to Saul and he says, "What have you done?" And Saul gives himself an excuse. I wonder if Saul had been like, "Samuel, I messed up. I should have waited for you."
Yeah.
I wonder how things would have been different, but Saul again betrayed his default setting of like, I'm gonna find some other excuse, some other thing to blame, and it's like, man, how true that is for us too. Like, is there anything else I can blame other than myself? How can I own this situation? So in the midst of it, especially with God, we need to own our stuff. I'm using the 12 Steps book. I don't know if I mentioned this in this, but I mention it to people because I think the 12 Steps is super helpful for all of us, because we're all addicted to sin in some way or another. But one of the steps is just fully owning your mistakes, fully owning your life. It was your decisions that led you here. It wasn't the stress work put on you. It wasn't your marriage. It wasn't your children. It wasn't your upbringing. It's you. You're the one who made these decisions. And so I think for Saul as well, in the midst of our waiting, if we mess up, that's why it says, right, if we confess our sins, God is faithful and will forgive and cleanse us from our unrighteousness. So, yeah.
I think that's a great place to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hope this is
Amen.
helpful for you. I'm sure you found yourself in a situation, you might actually be there right now, where you're like, man, I messed up. I didn't wait long enough for God to show up. Well, just take it to God. Own it. Own it with your family members. Own it with your coworkers, whoever it is, and confess it. We'll find out what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, blessings to you as you continue in your spiritual journey of discovering more about who God is and what He has for us.